All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe, he's Nick, and you are listening to the Nick and Joe Show, coming to you in a bifurcated format from the Think Radio Broadcast Centre here in Canada's national capital of Ottawa, and also from I guess we're going to have to come up with a different, we'll call it Bunker K. Nixon Bunker K for Killaloo.
Well, we could call it the flagship terrestrial station.
The flagship terrestrial station. That is very interesting, and hopefully the first of many flagship. Well, it may not be the flagship, but the first of many
members
terrestrial
of the
radio
fleet.
stations.
Yes, let's add to let's pretend we're the British Navy in 1700.
Okay, so got a lot of stuff to go over tonight, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who were with us last week, we had not our typical show, because normally we don't have a guest that's sitting here in the studio that we do basically what turned into a 2-hour interview. And Rod Taylor, who last week was with us, he in Ottawa, at the studio in Ottawa, and he is a fascinating person, the leader of the Christian Heritage Party, which is, one of those parties that typically people don't think of when they're thinking of who to vote for, partly because I suspect that most people don't even know it exists. And, before the show, we were kicking around here different ideas and themes about how they present themselves. And I was mentioning to them last week, Nick, off air, that, a great slogan for the Christian Heritage Party might be, Christian Heritage Party, you don't have to be a Christian to vote for us. I thought that was, personally, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say brilliant, but I thought it was, witty and clever. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that indeed we did have that 2-hour interview. Part of that was because we were trying to sort out a few technical problems, and I think we've pretty much got them sorted out tonight. Would I be correct in saying that, Nick?
Well, you can hear me this time.
I can hear you.
We have conquered this so far. Every dragon that came up last week, we've managed to conquer.
Right. Well, and more importantly, our listeners can hear. Okay, housekeeping stuff. For those of you who are listening on terrestrial radio, welcome. Unfortunately, you can't participate in our live chat room unless you're logged in on the internet. So this is how you do it. If you are just arriving home, you've been working out in the fields, you're doing whatever, okay? And now you're coming home, you're putting your 2 feet up, and you want to listen and going, what is this Nick and Joe show all about? And you want to participate in our live audience interaction. So this is how you do it online. You go to the Nick and Joe Show, all one word, .com. That's the Nick and Joe Show, all one word, .com. And then in the player, you'll see that there's a bubble, chat bubble, comment bubble, whatever you want to call it, okay? You click on that. If you haven't registered yet, you may have to register. If you have registered, you may have to log in. And that's for only one reason, ladies and gentlemen. That's to ensure that you're a real flesh and blood human being, that you're not, as we've been calling them, a malignant algorithm, or at the risk of upsetting some of our listeners, a lurking liberal.
Yeah.
Okay, because we're a conservative talk show. Nick and I are both conservatives. We don't always agree on everything, and sometimes we argue, but most of the time we see eye to eye. But this is a conservative talk show. This is part of diversity on the internet and part of diversity on the airwaves. So if you agree with us, great. Let us know by the chat room. If you disagree with us, that's great too. Let us know, and let other listeners know and participants know through the chat room. We don't keep your information to sell you anything, send you rogue emails or anything like that. So, okay, so off we go. Nick, where are we?
Well, you know something, Joe? So I'm in a bit of a funk, and there's 2 reasons for that.
Nick's in a funk.
Number one, yes, it doesn't happen very often, but I was in an argument with a log the other day, and I lost. I was working with a sawmill and trying to roll the log over to take another slice off it, and when I dropped the log, it came down on my finger and trapped it between the log and the sawmill bed and made a mess, and it hurt a lot. But I'll live. That's not the real big issue for me, though. We're now finished with everything available on Netflix for The Blacklist with James Spader.
Oh, you're caught up.
And we're all caught up. And like, what do you do now? This is massive hole, though. This is one of the best series I've ever seen. And James Spader is a brilliant actor. He's a very eclectic, had a very eclectic career in some of his choices about what he wants to do. He was in Boston Legal, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He's made a bunch of slightly off-kilter. There was one called The Secretary. Just a whole bunch of different, a wide variety of roles that most people go, oh, wow, that's kind of a weird movie. But in every one, he developed as a character, as an actor. Until now, he's one of the most popular and successful actors in Hollywood, or in this case, New York City. And he's like, I'm on withdrawal. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. One thing we didn't talk about during our pre-show huddle, pre-production meeting, was the fact that the Bloc Québécois are going to support the Liberals to push through Bill C-10. And I don't know how I didn't think of that, because that's huge. It's like, what, are you crazy? You know, where that came from, I don't know. I don't know if you get any comments on that, but I think it's absolutely asinine that any party would support the Liberals on this, regardless of what their political affiliation is. Even the NDP didn't want to have anything to do with it. So that tells you a lot. And then the Bloc comes along. It makes you wonder what kind of deals got made behind in the halls of power up there to get this done. Because despite all the objections and all the criticism of this bill, how terrible a bill it is, the kind of consequences it'll lead to, the Bloc said, too bad, so sad. We're going to limit your right of free speech, and we're going to impose what we think you should see and what we think you should listen to on social media and on the internet.
Well, that's actually quite interesting. And do you have any background information for our listeners on what is in Bill C-10?
Bill C-10 is put out. It actually, I believe, it comes out of the Heritage Ministry.
It is. It's the Heritage Minister that's sponsoring it.
Gilbeau is his name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's something like that. Some furry little liberal. Anyway, he's...
literally, too, he's got an interesting beard.
Well, that's why I mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
He's interesting is one way to put it.
And I can say that, by the way. I can make fun of people with beards because, I am seriously bearded.
You're the beard king.
I don't know if I call myself the beard king, Nick, but I am seriously bearded.
Yes, you are.
I do not dabble.
And he doesn't hold a candle.
You do not try to hold a candle to my beard because there will be a conflagration if you do.
I've had my kids bugging me for about 2 years now to grow a beard, and I simply won't do it. I can't get past the itchy stage. It drives me nuts. Anyway, that's besides the point. But the logic is they're trying to defend Canadian heritage by promoting Canadian content. They're trying to enforce a CRTC on the internet. Now, whenever a liberal, and I say that talking about liberal government, whenever this government comes up with something and say, well, here's its intention, you know they're lying to you. And how do you know? Because their lips are moving. They've so infrequently told us the truth. I can't remember the last time something they said actually turned out to be true, unless it was a bad thing, like gas tax, as a carbon tax, as an example. But so when you look into the heart of the bill, my MP, Cheryl Gallant, had a press release about this, and they'll be able to shut down anyone or limit or take a chunk out of the royalties of anything a Canadian puts up on YouTube. So if we have let's say we put our podcast on YouTube and it had 4 million views. Oh, don't I wish. they could take a percentage of the profits, of the percentage of the royalties that we would get from YouTube for that particular podcast. And if they don't like what we're saying, they could take it down completely. It's a draconian law. It's whenever they smile at you and say, "Don't worry." Like I remember about this had to be about 10 years ago when Trudeau was still a young man. He wasn't the leader of the party. He was just on the Hill. And a bunch of gun owners confronted him on the lawn of Parliament Hill. And they were mad that about, Bill C-69, I think it was, the gun legislation law. And they wanted him to repeal it. And he looked at them and he said, "I promise you we're not trying to take your guns away. And we're not going to do anything more than we're already doing as far as gun control." Well, that obviously went out the window shortly after that because they've been moving mountains to try to remove firearms from the hands of Canadians. And it's just, this is their legacy. And for some reason, people still believe them, although the numbers are coming down finally.
Their polling numbers, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, your polling numbers. They're at about a neck and neck tie with the Conservatives. Although I think, to be completely honest with you, Joseph, and I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, part of the reason why they haven't fallen further is because there is very little difference between the Conservatives and the Liberals on far too many things, whether it be the carbon tax or whether it be social programs or, whatever it is. There's very little to choose from between them. And if that's the case, a lot of people will look at that and say, well, the devil I know versus the devil I don't. And they're going to stick with the Liberals because why should I change if you don't give me any reason to?
Well, it is a very good point. The truth is that there's not a whole lot to choose from, at least in terms of policy, between the Liberals and the current Conservative Party. It's possible that things might change, but this has been a strategy of the federal Conservative Party in particular forever. I've been in conservative circles and politics and that for, somewhere in the order of 40 years now, 40 plus years. Hard to believe, Nick, in one form or another. Started out cutting my teeth stuffing envelopes as a kid, as a teenager for Walter Baker. So, I've been around for a while, professionally and as a volunteer, as you know, and I've seen conservative parties come and go, and I've seen them waver and go all over the place and all over the map. And, one of the recurring themes has been that the best way you can't beat the Liberals, so to speak, by being conservative. So the best way to get elected is to be liberal, but less so, and to rely on the fact that you're different people in the party as opposed to a substantially different political party in terms of its outlook and its policy and its whole methodology when it comes to government. That's not to say that there aren't differences, and it's not to say that there haven't been greater differences from time to time, but generally, the strategy of the brain trust of conservative parties federally has been to be liberal, but not as liberal as the Liberal Party is, on the belief, I think mistakenly, in my view, that if you do take that approach, then you're going to convince those liberal supporters who are somewhat in the middle or maybe even somewhat right of center, that they should give you a try, that you're not, all that bad. And my